Hi, I'm Bailey. I'm 18 years old. I've lost 160 pounds in the last 2 years, and now I look like this. It wasn't easy at all. There were many obstacles I had to overcome. Unfortunately, one of them was my twin sister, Summer. I'm going to tell my story from the beginning and hope it will inspire anyone who wants to lose weight. Summer and I are identical twins. Even though we look the same, our personalities are complete opposites. For example, I'm a total introvert. I like spending time on my own. Summer, however, likes to socialize. She always has people around. I'm not ambitious at all, but Summer is very competitive. She doesn't like to lose even when she's playing a game. I'm quite messy. Summer is super neat and organized. I'm always late to places. She is always on time. Even though we're twins, we're not the two halves of the same apple. We're more like apples and oranges, totally different people. One thing we're really different in is appetite. You know how they say that some people live to eat and others eat to live? I belong to the first group because I live to eat. I think about what to have for dinner while I'm having lunch, while Summer only eats what she needs to live. In fact, she often forgets to eat. She gets full really quickly, so she's always the first to leave the table. As you can guess, I've been overweight since we were babies, and Summer has been skinny. In primary school, nobody believed we were twins. "Impossible! You can't be twins! You must be 3 or 4 years older," they'd say. I'd like that they thought I was older. I'd piss Summer off saying, "I grew up, but you're still a little girl." When we started middle school, I was really heavy for a kid that age. Summer weighed 75 pounds while I weighed 165. After several negative experiences, I learned that being overweight wasn't something to be proud of. Being humiliated for my appearance had become part of my daily routine. The boys in class came up with new insults every day. When I got home, I'd go straight to the bathroom and cry. The worst was when Summer joined in and started making fun of me too. During every meal, she'd say something to upset me. "Watch out! Don't eat the plate! I can't believe that you can still fit into a chair. Eat a bit less so that kids in Africa can get some food." She became crueler towards me as time passed. She was ashamed of me and made it known at every opportunity. My life became even harder without my sister's support. I didn't have any friends. I was already an introvert, and this made me totally asocial. You must have heard that twins have a really strong bond. I felt this bond deeply, and I loved my sister so much. Sadly, Summer felt differently. I used to think that she loved me too. I thought, she's ashamed of me because I'm obese. She rejects me because she doesn't want to be associated with me. Maybe that was true in the past, but she'd changed. It was obvious from everything she did that she hated me. The girl who was constantly humiliated, who nobody wanted to be friends with, was her twin. Honestly, I could see where she was coming from. It was normal for her to hate me, because even I hated myself. If you had so many issues, why didn't you try to lose weight, you might ask? You're right. I should have lost weight. I knew that. I went on countless of diets from childhood. None of them lasted longer than a day. I'd attack food the moment I got hungry. Now when I look back, I can tell that it was totally normal, because food was my escape. I only felt happy when I was eating. I had a terrible life. If I didn't have the joy of eating, I'd have nothing left. That's why I couldn't stop eating. Actually, I was depressed. Eating uncontrollably was my antidepressant. So how did I manage to lose weight? Remember how I said I'm always late to places? It's hard to believe, but that's how I made the decision that changed my life. Every time I tell this story, first I cry and then I laugh. Let's see if the same will happen now. I was turning 16 that day. Of course, it was Summer's birthday too. My grandparents were coming over. In the morning, my mom had said, "You need to be home by 5. That's what my mom always does. Every year, she makes our birthday party a surprise. She doesn't mention the party. She just tells us what time we need to be home. For the past 3 years, Summer and I didn't get each other presents. It's like we had a silent agreement. We had stopped buying presents to each other. But this was different. I'm sure Summer didn't remember, but we had promised each other years ago. We were in kindergarten then. One day, "When do you think we'll be adults?" Summer had asked me. We knew that Mom was pregnant with us when she was 18. So if 18 was the age to be a mom, then 16 would be the start of adulthood. This meant our childhood would be over at 16. So we'd need to buy each other adult gifts. And what is an adult gift? Flowers, of course. Dad always got Mom flowers on special occasions. Mom loved them. That meant adults loved flowers. Since we were going to be adults at 16, we decided we should buy each other flowers. We promised that day that we'd buy each other flowers on our 16th birthday. Years passed by and it was time for us to keep our promise. Since I was late to everything, I bought the flower at the last minute. As I was walking towards the subway stop to go home, I realized it was already 4:30. I needed to be home in 30 minutes. I got into the subway with a huge bouquet in my hands. I was used to people staring at me because of my weight. But the stares had doubled because of the huge flowers I was carrying. It was 10 to 5 when I got off the subway. I wasn't going to make it unless I ran. When I started running with my huge body, the stares tripled. I was at the turnstile now. I was going to be away from the staring crowd really soon. I hurried towards the turnstile. Oh my God! I couldn't pass! I was stuck. Yes, I was stuck inside the turnstile. I couldn't go forwards or backwards. The people passing through the turnstile were laughing at me. Some just stopped and started watching me. I began to cry. At the same time, I was trying hard to get away. I was in such a pitiful state. Few people tried to help. A man pulled my hands while a woman pushed from behind. They managed to save me. In that chaos, the flowers got damaged and only the stems were left. I thanked my saviors. I threw away the stems. And I cried all the way home. At home, everybody was waiting for me. I couldn't tell them that I got stuck in the turnstile because I was so ashamed. We blew out the candles. Then guess what happened? Summer held my hands and took me to my room. There was a huge bouquet of flowers on my bed. She hadn't forgotten about it. I couldn't say anything. I just hugged her and cried and cried. The next day was Saturday. I didn't leave my room all day. In the afternoon, Summer came by. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. "What?" I said. "This," she said and showed me the video on her phone. Someone had videoed me stuck in the turnstile and uploaded it to YouTube, and the video had gone viral. Almost 250,000 people watched it in a day. I could see clearly how the flowers got damaged thanks to the video. They were trying to get me out of the turnstile. I didn't let go of the flowers despite the chaos. Yet, when I was free of the turnstile, all I had were the stems. It was funny but sad to see at the same time. Now it was Summer's turn to hug me and cry. After this incident, I decided to lose weight no matter what. I told Summer my decision right away. She held my hands. "We'll do it together," she said. We really did it together. I wouldn't have been able to do it without her. One of her friends' mom is a nutritionist. She created a meal plan for me. I had to exercise too, but the important thing was cutting calories. That meant eating less. It wasn't easy to do. Like many things, losing weight starts in the mind. If you start without convincing your mind, it finds a way to trick you. So you can't continue the diet. My suggestion for people like me is to think about all the reasons why they need to lose weight and make a list of them in a notebook. Don't start before you're completely convinced. I still can't believe I lost 160 pounds. When I started the diet, I was 275 pounds. Now I'm 115 pounds. I wanted to lose weight healthily, so I did it in 2 years, but this came with a negative side effect. Continuously losing weight means having to buy new clothes all the time. I had to change my entire wardrobe every 3 months. That's, of course, very expensive. Thankfully, my dad really supported me during this process. Last month, we celebrated our 18th birthday. My grandmother made us laugh a lot. She hugged me after we blew out the candles. She suddenly stopped. "I couldn't reach all the way around you before. Now, I can," she said. She said it so naturally that we all started laughing. Summer and I are getting along really well. I can feel that she still feels a little guilty. She's ashamed for the way she treated me. But we were both kids back then. Just like any other kid, we had the right to act foolishly. I ate like crazy and made my childhood miserable. She ran away from a child who made herself miserable. How could I expect her to love me when I hated myself? Lastly, those who have problems with their weight, don't wait until you get stuck in a turnstile. Like I said before, convince your mind and take the steps you need to lose weight. That's all from me.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah. This is my sister Layla. She's 4 years younger than me. Unfortunately, my family loves her more than me. I'm not even sure if they love me at all. Actually, I've always been aware that my parents have been nicer and more understanding towards Layla. It had never bothered me because I thought it was normal for them to treat her this way since she was younger. But recently, after everything that has been happening, I began to suspect that my parents just like Layla a lot more than me. I'm going to tell you about everything that happened. All I ask is that you share your thoughts in the comments. Do you agree that my parents are treating us differently? Please let me know. We moved to a new city during the summer. In our old house, Layla and I were sharing a room. Our new house is bigger, so now we each have our own room. We knew that summers in this region are really hot, but it turned out to be even hotter than we imagined. At night, we literally weren't able to sleep. The house had air conditioning only in our parents' bedroom and in the living room, so Layla and I didn't have it in our rooms. After a while, we had no choice but to start sleeping in the living room. I hated sleeping in the living room since I now had my own bedroom. But I didn't have any other choice, since our parents had spent a lot of money during the move and it would be inconsiderate to ask them to buy 2 more air conditioners. One night, I went to the living room to go to sleep as always. Layla wasn't there yet. She didn't come before I fell asleep. When I woke up in the morning, I was surprised to see that she wasn't there. On my way to the bathroom, I could hear that she was in her room. She was doing a TikTok. I went into her room to ask how she'd slept at night in the heat. And guess what? It wasn't hot there. Of course, I was surprised. I looked up and saw the AC unit on the wall. Yes, my parents got her a brand new air conditioner that made her room nice and cool. So she was able to sleep like a baby in her own room that night. Of course, I was really mad. My mom and dad were having breakfast. I asked them why only Layla had gotten an air conditioner. Very calmly, my dad explained, "Your sister told me she wanted to sleep in her room and asked me if we could get her an air conditioner. So I went and got one for her. They installed it while you were at school." I began to tell him, "Dad, I live here too. You know that I don't like sleeping in the living room either." My mom quickly said, "We would have gotten you one if you'd have asked for it." So I said, "Let's get one then." And Dad said, "It might be difficult for us to buy it this month, but let's talk about this again next month." I didn't want to argue with them about it, but they were obviously playing favorites, and now they were babbling irrationally to cover it up. Like I said in the beginning, they had always been nicer to Layla, but this time what they did went way beyond that. The AC incident really changed how I viewed my parents' actions, and I began to notice more things like this. This is when I started to realize that my family loves Layla more than me. Let me give you another example. Ever since elementary school, I've had to do house chores every day. I do the laundry, I take out the trash. When my mom tells me she's going to be late from work, I cook. But I've never seen Layla so much as bring an empty glass from her room back to the kitchen. My mom makes her bed. I iron her clothes. Once, when my mom told me, "Vacuum the living room," I said, "I need to study for a math exam I have tomorrow. Can Layla do it?" My mom said, "Of course not." So I asked, "Why not?" Do you know what she told me? "Because you need to do it." What kind of answer is that? And without another word, I did it like an idiot. Layla's birthday is coming up next month. I realized this when my mom said, "I thought I'd get Layla a cake shaped like the TikTok logo this year. What do you think?" For Layla's birthdays, she always gets a cake that looks like whatever she's into at the time. For example, last year she got a cake that looked like a Roblox character. But for my birthdays, my mom just bakes regular cakes. Ask my mom, it's a family tradition. She's baking my cake herself to show me how much she cares about me. Before, I would have believed it. But now I know that she doesn't care about me at all. Because if that were the case, she'd be baking Layla's cakes too. Once I started noticing things like this, they just kept on coming. Maybe it had always been this way, and I just never noticed. One morning, my sister came to the kitchen with a limp. She had hit her foot against the edge of the bed. She was very angry, saying, "Mom, I was writhing in pain on the floor for 10 minutes. I kept calling for you. Why didn't you come?" I couldn't believe my ears when I heard my mom's explanation. "Oh no, that was you calling me? I heard it, but I thought it was Sarah, so I didn't come. You sound so similar that I get confused. I wish I'd checked on you." She was saying these things like I wasn't there. It's like she wanted me to know she doesn't care about me at all. I couldn't take it and said, "Dear Layla, next time you should scream, 'I'm Layla, I'm Layla,' so that Mom knows it's you." My mom couldn't say anything, but looked at me as if I were the one who did something wrong. It was so obvious that Layla was the little princess of the family, but I'd never figured it out because I'd always been so naive. Here's another example. My folks never ever miss one of Layla's performances at school. If it's during the day, my dad always takes time off from work. I don't get to perform anymore, but my dad rarely came to mine, even when I was little. When he couldn't make it, he'd just say he had to work. But when it comes to Layla, my dad doesn't seem to care much about work or anything else. My parents come to the theater early to find a good seat in the front row, and they cheer for their precious daughter like crazy during the whole show. The other issue with school is our grades. Whenever I get a good grade, my dad will say that either the questions were easy or I just got lucky that it was a subject I'd prepared for. He'll find a way to tell me that I didn't really deserve such a good grade. With Layla, it's just the opposite. Her grades are not that great, but he always makes up excuses for her. Every time she gets a bad grade, he tells her, "You said you had a headache that morning, that must be it." Or, "That teacher is too demanding of you," to try to prove that it's not her fault. Things like this kept happening, and it made me really upset. I got hung up on stuff that I wouldn't normally care about. I had to find a way to solve this problem. I found a website that provides therapy online and signed up. It wasn't very expensive. I saved up my allowance for a while and got an appointment with a therapist from the site. We did a video call that lasted an hour. I told her about everything I'd been through. At the end of the session, she said, "Sarah, you can't solve this problem alone. Neither I nor another therapist can help you. You need to face your parents and tell them everything like you just told me. If they love both of you equally, which I believe is the case, they will have to convince you. Or you could be right and they might be favoring your sister without being aware of it. If that's the case, it's again your parents who need to put in the effort so that you don't feel like they don't love you. So don't waste your time with therapists. The only way you can resolve this issue is with your family." What she was saying made a lot of sense. I decided to talk to my parents the first chance I got. Last Sunday, Layla was at a friend's house, so it was a good time. I said to my parents, "I need to talk to you about something important." Naturally, they were very curious. I think I talked nonstop for an hour and a half. They didn't interrupt me even once. They just listened. A couple of times, I couldn't stop myself from crying. Actually, even telling them about everything felt really good. But unfortunately, their reaction did not make things any better. At first, they said, "We aren't playing favorites at all, and we love both of you very much." That wasn't the problem, but what my mom said next really hurt me. "Your personalities are so different. That might be why we're treating you and Layla differently. Layla is kind of like a cat. She only pays attention to us when we pay attention to her. Her natural inclination is to stay away from us. That's why we need to be extra nice to her all the time. Your personality is just the opposite." I turned red with rage when I heard that last sentence. I knew what she was saying, but I pretended I didn't understand. I asked, "What do you mean by opposite?" My mom couldn't say it outright. "Opposite of a cat's," she said. I think she was regretting the example she gave. I couldn't hold it in. "So you mean like a dog? Layla has the personality of a cat, and I'm like a dog. No matter how badly you treat the dog, it still comes back and sucks up to you, right? Is that what you actually think of me?" I asked. My mom shook her head. "I guess the way I said it didn't sound too good, but I just wanted to say you have different characters," she said, trying to defend herself. I think what my mom said clearly proved they were treating us very differently. When they saw that I was upset, they tried to console me. My dad said, "Both you and your sister are so precious. There's nothing you need to be upset about." But I'd already gotten my answer. They wanted to keep talking about this, but I couldn't take it. So do you agree that my parents don't treat the two of us equally? I still feel that they love Layla more than they love me. And on top of that, my mom's cat and dog analogy about our personalities was really weird. Can you please share what you think in the comments? I promise that I will read all of them. Hi friends, I'm Julie. I accidentally discovered my family's biggest secret. It's such a huge revelation that our lives will never be the same again. It all started when my older sister Jenny moved in with us after leaving her husband. I had no idea at the time that our marriage had been a mess for a while. When she found out that her husband Chris had cheated on her, it was the final straw. One morning while he was sleeping, she took her sons and left him. My sister is a housewife. She's never had a job in her life. She took her kids and moved in with us because she had nowhere else to go. At first, she told us it would be temporary, but after a year and a half, she is still living with us. I think she thought she'd get back together with her husband, but they just kept fighting for months. They weren't able to reconcile. All that fighting not only caused their marriage to end, but it also messed up our family because I saw a text message from my sister's husband when they were arguing. I was curious about what he meant with that message. When I looked into it, I found out about my sister's incredible secret. Let's rewind and go back to that evening. Now I see that by then, my sister was starting to lose any hope she had of keeping her marriage going, and this had made her very hostile. She wasn't speaking to my mom or me. She wasn't taking care of her kids. She wasn't eating. She wasn't sleeping. All she did was fight with her husband on the phone or through text messages. Yes, their marriage was in terrible shape. Chris was cheating on her. He didn't want to get back together, but my sister was still madly in love with him. She couldn't imagine her life without him. One night, I was putting her kids to sleep. The younger one asked, "How many days can a person go without food?" I knew why he was asking that. He heard my mom telling me, "Your sister didn't eat again today." Naturally, he was concerned about his mother. I gently rubbed his head. "Nothing's going to happen to your mom, because I'm going to go and make her an amazing sandwich. No way will she be able to resist it. She'll eat the whole thing," I told him. That put him at ease. "I want that same amazing sandwich in the morning too," he said as he closed his eyes. So right after he fell asleep, I went to the kitchen and made the best sandwich I could for my sister. I even added a birthday candle on it to make it cuter. I knocked on my sister's door. When she didn't answer, I cracked the door open and looked in. She had fallen asleep. I went into the room to put a blanket over her. I left the sandwich next to her bed. She was clutching her phone. Maybe she had dozed off in the middle of an argument, exhausted from lack of sleep. I smiled. She seemed so cute to me at that moment. I was still a baby when my sister left home. We never had a close relationship. Actually, that was quite normal because we didn't really spend that much time together. She didn't know me at all. That said, I can't really say her relationship with Mom is all that great either. She used to visit us at most once a year and called us every month or so. After Dad passed away, she started calling Mom more frequently. I think she was trying to be supportive, but our relationship didn't change much. She only held me and cried long and hard at Dad's funeral. I was thinking about all this as I was watching my sister sleep. I took the phone from her hand. I put it on her nightstand. Just as I did that, the phone screen lit up. She got a new message. Without meaning to, I read it. The message was from her husband. "Enough! I never told you to leave your daughter for me," he had written. While I was still processing this, another text from Chris came in. "Don't give me that guilt trip again. You didn't want your daughter. You made me your excuse. We both know that." I was so shocked and upset when I figured out what Chris was saying. Apparently, besides her 2 sons, my sister also had a daughter and she had given her up for adoption. Since she was blaming her husband for this, she must have abandoned her daughter to marry Chris. I accidentally learned something incredible. I switched off the light. I ran out of the room. I was still in shock when I lay in my bed. I thought my mom definitely knew about this, but she never told me. Normally, she loves talking about my sister, and she usually criticizes her. For example, she used to say, "Your sister's marriage wasn't going well since day one, but she still had those 2 babies. So why did she never say she had another child? Maybe my father didn't know, and she hid it from me because she was scared he would find out." This accidental discovery changed my whole perspective on my sister. How could a person do this to her own child? How could she abandon her for such a selfish reason? How old was her daughter right now? What was her adoptive family like? Did she know who her mother, my sister was? Could I find my niece? As her aunt, could I give her the warmth that her mother denied her? Now I was thinking about these nonstop. I wanted to find this poor child whose existence I had just found out about and give her back the life that her mother had taken away. But to be able to do that, I needed more information. I decided to talk to my mom and get answers to my questions. I was going to find my niece no matter what. Since my sister and her kids were always around, I had to wait for some time to talk to my mom. After a while, I got the chance I was waiting for. My sister wasn't able to look her sons in the eye. The poor kids were still trying to find out what was going on. They had moved into their grandmother's house. Their father wasn't around. Their mother was on the phone, screaming all the time. My older nephew Noah was about to start high school, but he didn't even know what city he was going to be in. He was already a shy kid. Now he had become even more withdrawn. I hadn't heard a word from him in days. My mom was naturally sad for the boys. There was a water park in our city. When I was younger, we used to go there every month. My mom thought of taking the kids there. I was supposed to go along to help her out. The following day, we were at the water park with the kids. Noah went for a swim in the pool. The younger one was playing on the slides. Mom and I sat at a cafe from where we could see the slides. I was looking forward to talking to her, but I didn't know how to start this conversation. Finally, I blurted out, "Mom, does my sister have a daughter?" My mom was stunned. She stared at me. "What are you talking about?" she said. I told her about the texts I read on my sister's phone. She was visibly stumped. She said things like, "Don't be silly, there's no such thing, you must have misunderstood." But she was so panicked that I could tell she already knew about this, but kept it from me. When I confronted her, she got angry. "You're a big girl now, you're heading off to college soon. Instead of thinking about things like this, do something for your future," she said. She began rambling on so that I wouldn't ask any more questions. When I figured out she wouldn't talk, I had to back down. What was I going to do now? My mother was obviously lying to me. I wanted to find my niece no matter what. Since I couldn't ask my sister, there was only one person left, her husband, Chris. Yes, I was going to ask him. I wasn't sure if he would help me out, but I had no choice. I had to give it a try. I didn't have Chris's phone number, but I knew the name of the car dealership where he worked. I Googled it and found it right away. I called the number. They called Chris to the phone. My voice was shaking. I said, "I'm Julie," and he was really surprised. I told him what happened. "I want to find my niece," I said. Chris said, "Forget about this for your own good." When I said, "What does it have to do with me?" "Go ask your sister. I can't say anything more," he said curtly. I didn't have any other choice. I was going to ask my sister. I went to her room. She was crying. I thought she and her husband had another fight, but this time it was something else. "Mom just told me," she said, averting her eyes. Then I understood Mom had told her that I knew about her daughter. I sat next to her. "I didn't want to upset you. I just want to find my niece and tell her that she has a family," I said, resting my head on her shoulder. My sister started stroking my hair. "You only have 2 nephews. You don't have a niece," she said. I picked my head up from her shoulder. I looked at her. "What do you mean? But you also have a daughter," I said. "Yes, I also have a daughter," she said, averting her eyes again. In that moment, the world started to spin. My ears were ringing with those sentences. "You don't have a niece, but you also have a daughter." Yes, I also have a daughter. I stared at her in disbelief. I was speechless for a minute. Then I said, "So I'm your daughter?" My sister nodded. "Yes, Julie, you're my daughter." I couldn't breathe. I didn't know what to say. My sister, who I had just found out seconds ago that was in fact my mother, started telling me the whole story. It was my freshman year in college. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I got pregnant by someone I didn't really know well. All I knew was his name, or at least I think I did. I still had the baby, and that was you. I was going to school. Your grandmother was taking care of you. Then I met Chris. I fell in love with him. Chris wasn't someone who would marry a young woman with a baby because he was an adventurer at heart. He wanted to travel the world and eventually settle down in a place that he liked. I left you with your grandmother and left with him. We traveled for 3.5 years. We got married along the way, but we came back because we couldn't make it work anywhere else. When I got back, I saw that you were calling your grandmother Mom. While I was gone, your grandmother had become your mother. I was really sad, but I knew I deserved it. Your grandmother made me swear, "You will never tell anyone that Julie is your daughter," she said. No one else other than Dad and Chris knew. And now you know. Everything came out in the open that day. I was the biggest secret in my own family. The person I knew as my sister was my mother. The person I knew as my mother was my grandmother. So what happened after I found out about all this? You might think it's strange, but almost nothing's changed. Yes, my sister might be my biological mother, but she's not my real mother. A mother is someone who raises and cares for a child. My sister surely doesn't deserve to be my mother. I only have one mother, and she will stay as my mother forever. Thank you for listening to my story. If you like stories inspired by real life, you can subscribe to this channel. Bye!